Welcome to The Road. This is a weekly podcast of All Saints Lutheran Church. I'm your host, John Pedersen, and I serve as pastor. Each week, we reflect on faith, life, and navigating the road ahead. The language of journey is common when we think about life. It has its joys and challenges along the way, and we all need a little encouragement and guidance at times to keep us going. There's a word in the Bible, asphalia, which means truth, but it's the same root word we use in English for asphalt, if you can believe that. It's a solid surface that makes travel easier and more assured. And so every week we're going to be exploring elements of faith and life that keep us on the road. Faith isn't about living a perfect life. It's about finding our way, getting through rough spots, but seeking out those great vistas too. You can find my weekly message here, but you'll also find special conversations with guests who have insights on things like wellness, parenting, and living with unique purpose. If you appreciate this podcast, remember to subscribe where possible and share it with a friend. Here's this week's message. So I want you to recall a time when you were overwhelmed or uncertain about how to deal with a challenge or crisis, and you reached out to someone to assist you. Perhaps it was something personal, but maybe it was also work-related. Did you find help? If not, maybe reflect on another experience when you did. Once you do, can you recall just the sense of relief and kind of lightness that came from that, knowing that you had the help you were looking for? Maybe you'll want to reflect a bit more to come up with something recent or memorable, but most of us have experienced this feeling at one point or another. And even though most of us know how good it feels to receive assistance with something, sometimes we have this idea that we need to figure out everything ourselves. Unless you raised yourself in the woods your whole life and you just showed up here for the first time this morning, you've relied on other people throughout your life on how to move forward and get help. And yes, sometimes that's meant getting help from a mom or a caring adult or a mentor. We do it when we need to figure out how to complete a project at home or at work, how to be a better parent as you face a problem you haven't had to navigate before. Students turn to their teachers for help with assignments. Many people do this as they're dealing with loss and grief, and turn to family, friends, and the church and others to help them know how to move forward. And this is the subject of the reading we heard from Acts 9 earlier that I want to focus on today. The author of Acts is Luke, the same one who wrote the gospel by that name. And this is his second volume, sharing a history of the early church after Jesus has departed. And he takes us to the city of Joppa, which was a port town on the Mediterranean, as a group of disciples is dealing with a time of grief. Now, I think most of the time when we hear the term disciples, it's in the Gospels in reference to the 12 disciples, or occasionally some part of a broader group of 70 original followers during Jesus' ministry. But here we're reminded that any person seeking to learn and grow in faith is a disciple. As the gospel begins to spread throughout communities around the Mediterranean, we're starting to meet some of these disciples. Last week we learned about an otherwise unknown disciple named Ananias who stepped up at risk to himself to go and minister to Saul. Luke is introducing us to these lesser-known leaders who made an impact in a singular moment in their life. And another one of those notable disciples in the city of Joppa is a woman named Tabitha, or Dorcas in Greek. We don't know a lot about her, but that she was devoted to good works and acts of charity. The word for charity here could be also translated acts of compassion and kindness, or almsgiving. You can tell that her compassion and love for people has made a significant impact because a whole group has come around now along her bedside to grieve her loss. Luke says that widows were weeping and showing tunics and other clothing that Dorcas had made while she was with them. Tunics were a standard first layer of clothing. The other clothing actually is a very specific word in Greek and refers to a type of clothing called imation, which is the same word used of the outer robe that Jesus removed when washing the disciples' feet in the upper room. It often conveyed some element of status or self-expression. So these were not just bargain essentials that she had made for these people. She's given them dignity. This mention of the robes and other garments Tabitha made for them highlights her ability to care for them financially and her commitment to serving them, rather than simply taking care of her own needs. Now, these same widows have cleaned and cared for her body out of respect. But that's where the story takes a turn. They happen to know that the Apostle Peter is not far away in a neighboring town, and so they send some of their own to go and speak with him and ask him to come and help. They ask him to come without delay. So she's died, and yet there's some urgency, as if they still have some hope of a better outcome, or perhaps they simply want him to be there to help them honor her ministry as a leader in that community before she's buried. Peter immediately responds and goes to Joppa and enters into the room where they've laid Tabitha. We heard the rest of the story. He clears the room and kneels down and prays, and he commands her to get up. And notice that Peter doesn't just ask or beg Tabitha to get up. It's not a request or a choice. She is told to arise, and she does. He helps her up and takes her outside to greet everyone. And Luke writes, "This became known throughout Joppa, and many believed in the Lord." It's obviously a miraculous turn of events. And again, it's not perfectly clear what the disciples in Joppa expected when they called for Peter. No doubt they had heard of other miracles. Sometimes when we call for help or assistance, we don't even know what it is we might need or what might come of it, what's possible. We just simply need the company and presence of others. And so this story is another example of the way that faith is often connected to our well-being. And very often in a kind of older school, I would say, or classically modern worldview, we see faith as strictly cerebral or intellectual somehow. Faith is what happens maybe in our mind, but I think we all know now that mind, body, and spirit are interconnected. There are still dimensions of that we don't understand, and it's not a direct relationship in every case. But our faith and spiritual well-being in some fundamental level can impact our bodies, our minds, and our relationships, and vice versa. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and for some, there's still a stigma around illness that impacts our thinking, our feelings, or our mood. There's still often more understanding and support for someone facing cancer, for example, rather than someone facing depression or anxiety. Part of that gap can be bridged by increasing our understanding, but we can also change our expectation that mental health deserves the same level of funding and support as other physical health conditions. For any of us who struggle with mental health, it's important to know that 1 in 5 U.S. adults experience mental illness each year that really impacts their life somehow. Anxiety and depression are among the most common conditions. 1 in 6 U.S. youth ages 6 to 17 experience a mental health episode or disorder each year. Having a mental health issue doesn't mean you or your family has done anything wrong or that you're broken or can't get better. There's hope. Often we think we have to figure out everything on our own. And while developing inner resilience is helpful, we need others and the support that they can provide. We can all think of times we've needed help in other areas of life. At church, we have all kinds of systems and equipment that need attention over the course of time, and our staff and even our members don't always have the skills to address them, so we call in consultants or people skilled in how things work, and it's the same with our physical health and our mental health. This past Tuesday, a group from All Saints attended a yearly breakfast with our ministry partner, Mental Health Connect, which is a collaboration of congregations supporting mental health in our communities. And we heard the story of a teenager and her parents share what it's like to work through mental health issues. In the case of the daughter, even as she needed to focus on getting better, she had to seek help and support. She couldn't do it alone without her parents, counselor, and others. But even though we know getting help is straightforward, that doesn't make it easy, and sometimes it requires bold action for the one who needs that help and those around them. It can take courage to reach out. Know that if you or someone you know is struggling, you can reach out to me at church. You can also use the Navigator line provided by Mental Health Connect. It's a service that helps people assess what they need, along with next steps, including providers that meet your criteria. That number was in the pre-service announcements today, so you're welcome to go back and view this video later to get that, or just go to our website under the Be Well tab and click on Emotional Wellness. You'll find a variety of resources there, including the Navigator Helpline link. The community in Joppa is there caring for one another, and they seek out Peter for help, even if they aren't sure of what will come of it. Again, they simply know that getting assistance is the next step. We all need a caring community like that, and my prayer is that this congregation can at least be part of that for you and all of our neighbors. In the same way that the faith of the community in Joppa was a source of support for the disciples there, faith provides us with hope and contributes to our well-being and sense of peace as we confront real challenges, everyday challenges. Today's gospel also reminds us that we have a good shepherd who cares for us. Again, Jesus says, "My sheep hear my voice. I know them and they follow me. I give them eternal life and they will never perish." Know that God's care and love surrounds you today and going forward. Trusting in the love and grace of God, may you find peace and well-being in your body, mind, and spirit. Amen. That's this week's message. You don't have to navigate the road ahead alone. You can join with others at All Saints. Visit allsaintsmtka.org for more information. Have a great week.